A live stream, the whole idea behind this live stream is to give you guys an opportunity so that you guys can see and you guys can ask us question, because if you can ask us question you can get clarity. If you can get clarity, then you can certainly make a more better and informed decision. And that is the whole purpose of doing this one, so that you guys can get those clarities, you guys can make in important decisions, whether you are buying gold, whether you're buying silver, or whether you are just looking to reduce exposure with that particular respect. So with that said, let's begin this particular podcast. And once again, apologies for being a little bit for the technical issues that we faced earlier, and we appreciate that your patience in relation to that one. So let me just adjust this one a little bit, because obviously this is an unplanned sort of still in a phase of us doing the streaming. So okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what is happening in relation to silver. Let's talk about what is happening in relation to gold, and let's talk about what is happening in relation to Bitcoin. I'm going to spend majority of this particular one in talking about Bitcoin and what is happening with respect to Bitcoin. But of course, this particular one, the Q&A session, is mainly about silver, and it is mainly about gold. So if you recall, on Friday during our first stream, we talked about the opportunities in the silver market. We talked about how that particular sell-off was a really intense sell-off that we saw that coming for a long period of time, but we also predicted the rally in terms of silver prices reaching the level of 60 to 121,000. Because back in December, there's a video on our YouTube channel where we talked about how prices can actually reach that particular level of $100, and then why it can actually go above that one. Now, on Friday, when prices fell dramatically, and they fell because of the margin requirements were increased by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, everyone saw panic, and then people thought that, okay, maybe silver prices now they will continue to sell off, while other people thought that, okay, maybe this is such an intense sell off, the prices will not sell anymore from here, and then they will just go back up. So which was again a very, very good and positive thing from that particular perspective. But what happened going into Monday, silver prices, they crossed the lows of Friday. Gold prices crossed the lows of Friday. It was a clear confirmation that prices have still more lower levels to test, meaning that the selling is not fully done, meaning that people are still not satisfied with the current level and prices can still test lower levels. In very simple words, people were still testing whether gold and silver, they can survive as a test, as a safe haven asset, because obviously they are safe haven assets, meaning when riskier assets like a stock market goes up, these particular assets actually go down. So, and then vice versa, when this one goes up, the stock market kind of goes down, and then that's what the relationship between that is. Now, as of today and as of yesterday, we saw silver prices moving back up and nearly reaching that $90 mark. Gold prices reaching that 5,000 mark. But then after touching those particular levels, prices started to retrace. What does that retracement means? Meaning the prices started to go back up. But here is very, very important thing in relation to gold and of course in relation to silver. When we look at the two assets, silver and gold, silver is holding on to its gain much better in comparison to gold. So what I am saying right now is that silver is showing more strength in comparison to gold. And this is interesting because generally gold is the one which always shows more strength, and then where the buyers are coming back, and then we're going up. The reason that I am saying is because if you look at the price action today, where the price opened for gold and where the price closed for gold, it was very, very equal level, meaning to during the day, the sell-off happened, the price went down, but not went down as low as the day before, which was yesterday's low, and price went up, which was higher than yesterday. So price did go up in relation to that one. So, but it couldn't continue to move higher, and it came down and met the same level where it opened up today. That was showing to me one thing in terms of a gold price. That was telling me that buyers are not fully convinced if price action for gold can actually continue the momentum. Now, if we look at the momentum in relation to silver, things are a little bit different. Price opened up, which was higher than yesterday's close. It went up above the yesterday's high. And today's low that it put in was also higher than yesterday's low price. It was confirming to us that the momentum is there because we are above the lows of yesterday. We are above the highs of yesterday. But the more important thing in terms of silver is that price was actually closed above the open of today, which in gold prices, it didn't really happen. And in fact, the price for silver actually closed nearly towards the highs of yesterday, nearly, approximately, okay, not exact. So which confirms that the silver buyers are more convinced that silver has much more room to run. Now, obviously, this theory can be tested. I mean, what could potentially happen is that we could see this rally, which is recovering, could come down like this. It will fall. It will fall and it will go to the level that we saw on Monday this week, right? So today, obviously, is Wednesday. I can't even believe that today is already Wednesday. More than a half a week is gone. So tomorrow, by the way, I'm attending DAS, which is the Digital Asset Summit in London. So if you guys are around, I will be at that particular summit tomorrow. So do come and say hello. So the price could actually test the lows that we saw on Monday. There is a higher probability because what we really kind of wanted to see was the continuation of this one. We don't want to see the momentum to fade in relation to gold and silver. But having said this, we were already prepared for this particular scenario that is really unfolding in the market. And that means that the bounce happens and then confidence in the market kind of dies off for gold and for silver. And then potentially a reversal happens in terms of the prices, meaning the price do not continue to move to the upside. In fact, it reverses it and it comes down towards the lows that we have seen on Monday. Either it stays and then bounces back up, or either it even continues and move further lower from that particular point. So both options, both particular scenarios, we already planned when we went into this particular position on Friday. Okay, so this is no surprise. Now the question really comes to mind is that, okay, well, I am still a little bit positive than where I bought it on Friday. Should I sell my position? What should I do? Well, the first question is, the first answer and the statement to that one is, we are not your financial advisors. And this is purely for education. An education which clears the noise and which provides you clarity, okay? But purely for education purposes. Now, what I would do and what the trader's psychology is that, shall I do this one? Now, let's say that the price, you price it out and then sorry, you sell this one with a very small profit, the possibility happens that the price never goes down to the level of Monday's low. The possibility also is that it may actually move back towards its levels of $100. So consider these two possibilities. One is that now you think that, okay, that there's a loss of momentum in the price. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell it with a smaller profit, very small profit, and just look and wait for the price to come down. But the price doesn't come down. The price actually just shows you that it's losing momentum. But if it doesn't actually lose momentum and it continues and shoots back up, how would you feel if that happens? You would be absolutely gutted. You would be gutted because you will say that I had my timing absolutely correct when it comes to the price. I was very much sure where the price is going to go. I was very much sure that from here we are only moving to the upside, right? So you will say all of those things in your head in relation to this one. And the price will continue to the upside, and then you will make some silly decisions. Now, in order to avoid all of that negative mentality, psychology in relation to silver and gold, we're gonna hold. I'm gonna hold off the position because the position is not that big. It is okay in terms of my risk model. And if the price comes down back to the level which was formed on Monday, which was a low, at this particular level, I may or may not buy it. But if the price breaks down this level below the level of Monday, that brings me another opportunity. An opportunity which means that the prices could now potentially be moving towards the $45 to $55 price mark. And that is a level where I am even more confident and I'm going to be even more ready to buy more at that particular price level because I would love to see the prices going into that one. So then I have one position which is on on Friday, last Friday, and then the next one which is going to be even more lower than my expected price. So that is the scenario that we're looking at in terms of silver. Now, of course, in terms of fundamentals, one of the important things that happened today, and this is the long-term lens that I'm really looking at, is United States and Russia, they did not renew their contract to further enrich their nuclear material. In very simple English, there were agreement between the two countries that no one increases the nuclear materials enrichment. Nuclear equipments like the material which goes in it. I'm just trying to simplify it as simply as possible. So basically the material which is used to make those nuclear weapons. They both had this treaty, they both had this agreement that no one would do that. Now, after a long time, for the first time, both nations have agreed that they did not sign that agreement, which means America will have more nuclear weapons and Russia will have more nuclear weapons because now the agreement is not there. So now a full-scale nuclear war weapons will go into production. And we really hope that day will never come in my life or in anyone's life, because that would be a total disaster if it ever happens, i.e. the nuclear war. But the fact that we are moving into that direction, and then those directions have only intensified under the current presidency, does make you think that what are the alternative or the old days currencies and assets. And of course, gold and silver are the top ones. The only reason that we have seen so much of a momentum in terms of a gold price and silver price was mainly because of geopolitical tensions. Tensions which were created by the current president in the office, by using tariffs as a weapon against other countries that retaliated, meaning the countries got really angry that how unfair the playground has become. Although the playground has been always been unfair for the between the powerful and the weak, between the rich and the poor, that is no doubt in my mind. That's always been the case since the World War II, since the World War one. That's always been the case. But now, under the current administration, the countries which were still considered as rich, the countries which were still considered as powerful, have started to feel that pinch. They've started to feel that particular power, that negative mentality and the thinking towards America. And then they started to say, okay, we're going to move away from the dollar denominated world. We don't want to trade in dollar because everything internationally, as a government, when you trade in dollar. Now they started to say, okay, let's move away. When you move away, the best asset classes for you to look at is, of course, gold, is, of course, silver, and somewhat Bitcoin, which we are here coming to it, that what is happening with respect to Bitcoin and how I see that one. And then tomorrow we'll be also putting videos on those ones as well. So that is the whole story of that one. And in this daily Q&A sessions, which we are trying on various different days and times, these are really your opportunities to ask me questions. Tell me what positions that you have in the market. Really, if you are thinking of doing it, or what questions that you are facing, or what dilemmas you are facing, or why are you not sure what is stopping you, what it is, or what is making you to make that trade. I mean, like if you wanted to discuss those particular questions, your clarity, then it would be the right opportunity to do that, because as always, I'm not boosting anything, but I do come with the 20 years of investment banking experience. I have worked in investment banks of Bank of New York Mellon, Bank of America. I have taught as a guest lecturer at the London School of Economics. I am a TV guest on CNBC and Bloomberg, and I write for Wall Street Journal and NASDAQ and CNN and Forbes. So I do have that knowledge in relation to this one. But the whole purpose of creating this channel, this community, which is the most important thing, is to really give you guys the power, is to really level out the playing field between the privileged and the unprivileged, between the knowledgeable one and less knowledgeable one, between the smart money and so-called dumb money. Because the whole process, what we want to do here is to build a community which becomes more wiser, more educated, and has the ability to understand and take the decision how people with a huge amount of experience, like myself and my colleagues and other people, come with. We can find information in this channel and over here. We try to we are creating that community where we are bridging the knowledge gaps between that. So again, coming kind of wrapping that one up with silver and gold, that is what the story is. So if you do have questions, even in the live feed, please feel free to ask those particular questions. We'd be very happy to answer them. Now let's move on to Bitcoin. This is very interesting because back in December, again on our YouTube channel, there is a video that you can go and then see that I talked about Bitcoin prices dropping towards that 74,000 level or even below that particular level. And the question really comes that why I thought back then when the prices were trading above $100,000 that the prices can go and revisit these particular price levels. There were a number of reasons. Number one was that I was looking at that, whole this boom happened in the Bitcoin prices in this current cycle is because of institution adoption, meaning larger, big money, high net worth individuals coming and buying Bitcoin. And that happened initially when President Trump came into the office, and then it started to boost prices up. But around November and December time, I started to see a pattern. And with respect to Bitcoin, you can see that one on chain, that they started to sell. every day I was looking at on-chain data, which is another metric. You don't need to worry about that. Where I was seeing the biggest institution in the world, i.e., BlackRock, was putting the sell orders, submitting Bitcoins on Coinbase and selling them. And that made me concerned that something is up, something is about to happen. The prices, they should not be selling, they should be buying really at this particular point. And but that didn't really happen, right? And then there was other thing. Before Trump used to say anything on his social media, or the White House used to say anything on the social media about Bitcoin, it used to bring huge amount of energy in the industry. People used to just go and create that FOMO that now it's going to go up, it's going to go up, it's going to go to 200,000, it's going to go to 150,000. But at that time, what started to happen, just in around that time, what started to happen was that people started to not pay too much attention what these particular individuals were doing. People stopped being very optimistic about what Trump is saying, what White House is saying about Bitcoin, and even if there were positive news, they were not influencing the price action how it should be. So that really triggered a warning sign for me. And I was like, okay, this thing, it continues to flirt with 110,000 price level, it continues to flirt and touch 102 to 103,000 price level, and it has actually broken 100,000 price level as well. I was like, if it breaks again, it is going towards the 73 to 74,000 price level. And that happened today. The Bitcoin price touched the 73 to 74,000 price mark today. And now the conversations are happening that where would we go from here? What is next? Now, as always, the strategy is very simple, very easy to look at, and that is to look at the oversold levels, look at the panic in the market, which right now there's a lot of panic in the market about Bitcoin. It is when people begin to ask these questions. They ask, is this thing going to survive? This thing is just too oversold. I don't think it is going to come back up. When people have this sort of a mentality with respect to Bitcoin, for me, excuse me, that is a really good opportunity to come back, because every time Bitcoin has proved that it can actually survive, it can actually come back, it can actually prove everyone wrong in relation to that, and then it can actually move higher. So now the question really is, what is going to happen with the biggest holder of Bitcoin, MicroStrategy? Because now, currently where Bitcoin is trading, MicroStrategies officially is trading at a loss on its Bitcoin holding. Because MicroStrategy, the whole phenomenon, the whole thing is that you buy Bitcoin at a lower price. When the price goes up, that is the earnings, that is the dividend, that is the profit which you distribute. And then you raise more money, and that's what they've done. Now the current price of Bitcoin, where it is trading, and the average buy price from MicroStrategy, which the CEO, Michael Saylor, is running, is below their price. And then this has caused a lot of confusion. Now, of course, if we look at the overall ETFs again, very simple English, that is nothing but just a basket, a huge basket of money in America, which buys Bitcoin. And you can see the outflows and inflows in that particular ETF or in that basket. You can see for the last 3 months, we've been looking at money leaving, money leaving, money leaving. During the month of November, we saw massive outflow of capital, meaning people selling, right? And this goes back to what I was looking at, because BlackRock was selling that one in November. In December, again, we saw an outflow, of that, meaning people selling and getting out, whether that was a smart money or whatever that was. We saw that one happening. But in December, the pace of outflow was lower than the pace of outflow, meaning money leaving, in November. So in December, going into it, the conversations were, okay, maybe this is slowing down. Maybe the price is going to go back up now because this is very positive. But then when we came into January, the outflow, the money leaving the pocket, was higher than the number which was published in December. And that caused a lot of panic. Especially, this is so much true if we look at the headline from yesterday from BlackRock, which said that BlackRock sold 88 billion US dollars worth of Bitcoin yesterday. Could you, that is a huge number, 88 billion. That creates more panic. That creates panic among investors. And especially for weak hands, especially for people who do not have knowledge, especially for people who do not have the same amount of understanding that I have, my colleague have, and other people have, because we come from the industry, we understand how it works. Because for us, the most important thing is when a panic like this happens, you go to the next important thing. You go and then you look at, okay, how many negative headlines are producing still more sell-off in the price? That is the number one thing that we look at. Number two thing, the second thing that we look at is how much oversold prices are. Now, as of yesterday, with respect to Bitcoin, BlackRock 80.6 billion to be very precise, sold Bitcoin. Then in terms of Ethereum, Vitalik, who's the founder of Ethereum, he also sold 830 million worth of Ethereum. That all created a huge amount of a panic in the market, which as a result, we saw that one. And we saw the prices shifting lower. We saw a lower low than the previous lows for Bitcoin. It nearly broke 73,000. The chances are that it will break still and then move lower, because I don't see conviction coming back, meaning strong buyers coming back. And we also see in terms of Ethereum, lower prices as well. But here is something, and then I'm saying this one with confidence, and let me give you a little bit context to that one. The biggest certificate that you can do in technical analysis, that you will see a lot of guys drawing charts and monkey things on charts, is called CMT, and it stands for Chartered Market Technician. For each exam, you have to pass 7, you have to read 7 books, and there are 7 exams. Okay, so you can see that how much knowledge and information and the practice that you have to do. And I've done CMT in relation to that one. So there's the thing called RSI, Relative Strength Index. This basically tells you momentum. It is by no means that you can say that this is the leading indicator, meaning that if it tells you something, you just go and then you buy it blindly and then prices will go up. No. That is not how things happen. But it is an indicator, meaning you can take that one as an indicator only. Don't make your decision fully on it. You can see what happened in the past and what is likely to happen. With respect to Ethereum, the reading for this RSI is at a level that, going back in the history, every time it produced that reading, so low reading, we saw momentum coming back in Ethereum, and that pushed the prices up with respect to Ethereum. So there is a probability of that happening. Now, in terms of positive news, what is happening? Everyone says that with respect to Bitcoin, there is a cycle of 4 years, which means that the next high is going to be in 2029, which means that the next price in the next cycle high would reach 250,000, but only in 2029. This is a long period, very painful period if we have to wait for that long period of time. So For us, the most important thing is that we want most investors and smart money and people with the knowledge. They believe that this is not going to happen in 2029. It's going to happen well before that. And then I really hope that it will happen before that. So we have to look at signs. So one of the positive signs, I'm going to speak to some positive actual facts about them, is that UBS, which is the biggest Swiss bank, just to put things in perspective, $7 trillion worth of assets, and the accounts that both anyone who opens up as an individual has to have a certain amount of money to open up, and that certain amount is very huge. It is now considering and close enough to offer Bitcoin to its individual investors, meaning that these wealthy people who have accounts with UBS, they can buy and sell Bitcoin a lot more easier than holding it in wallets and then going through all of that complexity. Although the process has become a lot more smoother. So this is coming at a time when the current price of Bitcoin is below the average point of all the ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs, meaning that basket, the wealthy basket, and that they bought Bitcoin. So the ETF buy price, average buy price, and Bitcoin's current price is lower than their price. So if these wealthy individuals are getting an opportunity to buy Bitcoin at the current levels, you can only guess what they're going to do, potentially buy. The second good news is, of course, in terms of Binance. It has created another fund, which is called CEFU, and that is purely created for investment purposes. And then they buy in that one very safe assets like the US Treasuries. And of course, they buy assets which are oversold, currently Bitcoin. So they announced today that they have bought 100 million worth of Bitcoin. Now, the next good news comes from ARK Investment. ARK is very much known for what they do and when they buy. What they have done is they announced that they have bought 274,358 shares of a company called Bitmine, where Tom Lee, the famous strategist, has been buying Ethereum like blindfoldly pretty much. That again brings the perspective from different perspectives. So we have banks like UBS bringing up good news. We have Binance, where their CEFU fund is buying Bitcoin now. And then we have ARK, one of the biggest investment fund, buying Bitmine shares, which is basically buying Ethereum. And then we have what we call hodlers index, and that hodlers index is really basically, it tells you that for those people who have the mentality of buy and hold, okay, of Bitcoin. So they were selling it in the last few weeks, in the last few months, and now we have started to see those buyers coming back in the market. And when these buyers come back in the market, they come back hard, they come back with big money, and then they go big. So this is certainly very, very positive. Now, another positive news, as I mentioned, is the fear and greed index. I really don't like to buy things when there's too much greed, and that is FOMO. That is everyone going like what happened with silver right towards the end of the $121 or $100 people were buying it, and then the massive drop happens. But still, the long way view still continues to remain good, just the same with Bitcoin as well. But now that fear and greed index is at its lowest point in terms of fear, or in terms of greed rather than fear, meaning the fear is very high and the greed is very low. People are not very comfortable. And this is a contrary indicator, meaning opposite indicator, meaning that when it shows you that there's very little greed in the market, too much fear, it's generally a very good time to buy. And then that happened. Now I'm going to wrap it up with the last point with respect to Bitcoin. And that is, remember at the beginning, we said that yesterday BlackRock sold 88.6 billion worth of Bitcoin. Today, the news flipped and the news came in that BlackRock has actually bought 60 billion worth of Bitcoin today. So it's of course not enough to offset the sell-off. There's a still difference of a good 20.6 billion as of yesterday and today, but this is a good positive news. So we have today a lot of positive news. One is it is oversold. Two, UBS is considering towards investors. Three, of course, in April it is expected the big bill in America will pass. Fourth, fear and greed index, which is not really a huge sign, but it is a good thing that we're seeing that. But more importantly, we're seeing companies like Binance buying for SafeU with their own institutional arm, BlackRock coming back and now submitting those particular buy trades. So again, this is a great sign, and as a professional in the industry, I would see these ones a lot more earlier and base my decisions on these particular elements than anything else. And in this particular channel, that is what we are trying to do. We are trying to level out the playing field, trying to give you guys more information about that one, make you more informed what is happening in the market. So if you do like the content, what you see, and if you learn, please do give a thumbs up, and always appreciate the support in terms of continue to watch our content, because your support means everything and it helps us in Google algorithm. Thank you.